Hey, welcome back to the Aaron LeBauer Show. Today I've got a special guest, and my special guest's name is Danielle Aguilar. She's from San Antonia, Texas. I got that right, in reaction rehab and sports performance. But thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think, getting to be able to hop on here, talk with you and share a little bit about my journey. Hopefully can, it can be relatable. That would be my goal for this, because I definitely use your podcast to figure out ways to relate and stuff like that.
Oh, really awesome. So tell me, what's been like, over the years, like listening to the podcast, how'd you find it? And what was the thing that like was most helpful for you about it?
So a friend of mine who also started his own business had recommended a few podcasts, and so I just started listening to yours and like maybe two others, and I just kept finding myself going back to yours. I kept finding little pearls, little snippets that I can continue to implement in my business, and more of like affirmation, like reaffirmation that I'm doing the right thing, and then also allowing me to really make sure that I can relate on a certain level with those that were on the podcast. And that was extremely helpful, because when I was on my own, no one really mentors you in a cash-based space,
Mhm.
yeah, even though I've had experience running clinics, it's a different animal. It really is. And that's how I found it, through a friend,
Yeah.
recommended it, and kind of kept going from there.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, some days, like I know that I feel like I just do the podcast and no one ever hears about it or no one listens, but I know people listen. I just don't hear as
Yeah.
much. And that's really
It's good to
cool.
hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really awesome. Um, cool. Well, what's your star sign?
Is
Do you
that
know?
like the zodiac sign?
Yes. I know I'm a
You're just making
Sagittarius. I
sure.
just figured we'd start
Oh,
there. We'd
okay.
start at the beginning rather than after college, how
Oh,
you became a
okay.
PT.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, I'm a Virgo. My birthday is actually on September 3rd.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, awesome.
yeah.
Congrats. Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
be
Thank you.
25 coming up or something, right?
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Easily 25 plus a couple
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
maybe a whole few years. But who's
Yeah.
that? Who's that?
Yeah. That's awesome. So, you own a cash-based practice in San Antonio. How long have you been doing that?
3 years now. My 3 year
Years.
anniversary. Yeah, gosh, it came on so quickly. My third year, as of August 21st. And I started out of my originally my apartment, and it was out of my second bedroom. I was just, treating people as more of a side hustle,
Mhm.
evolved into my townhome, where I was treating patients all the way through into like performance training. That was out of my townhome first, on the first floor, and then moved into my new space as of 3 months ago.
Wow. That's dope. Congrats.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long after you got out of PT school did you start your kind of little side hustle thing?
So I had already been practicing probably about, I would put on the better end of 5 years.
Mhm.
Um, and I really got into academics. I pursued my residency, my sports residency, and then had the privilege of mentoring and, still learning a lot now. And I really enjoyed that setting. Really did. I'm not what you would call the most studious person, but I definitely enjoy reading. I don't enjoy taking tons of exams. Anyone who's close to me knows that. Not one of my favorite things. But it was, after the 5 years, I was approached, and hey, let's try and get your own, what do you think about starting your own business? And came out of left field for me, because I was very much in the business of learning and wanting. I really enjoyed being a mentor and things like that, and really kicking off a sports residency at the clinic that I was at. And then this other idea came along, and then a great opportunity came along on top of that. And then I just saw the need
Yeah.
for
Who
the
approached you?
performance
Was it
training.
like your cousin was like, "Hey, let's start a practice," or was it like someone
No,
else in
no.
PT? I mean, how did that?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. It was someone else in PT. He was an employee friend, considered him more of a friend, and then the employee second type of deal. And he came to me with this idea, and I said, let me think about it. Like, I didn't really ever think about going into business for myself. Um, And then I was really humbled. Someone else had approached me like, hey, what do you think about coming into business with me? And he was also a PT friend. They were both PTs, decided to pursue this avenue with another friend. And then, reaction came to fruition.
Yeah.
Again, it was kind of like certain things happened in terms of, this opportunity for me to step away and work with the professional. And I had to make a decision, am I going to stay in the balance and try and balance a full-time job while traveling with this professional? It wasn't going to happen. So reaction looked a lot more promising for me to continue. And then unfortunately, that professional opportunity did not happen. And then reaction became my full-time job. And
Got it.
then it was
So it
kind of
was
like,
like someone was like, "Hey, there's a, you can be the, the PT for like either a pro or a team or something like that.
mhm.
Oh, get your own business and we'll get you, we can connect you with them to get a job." And then that just didn't happen. Or get a
But
job.
that's kind of how
Yeah.
it happened. Exactly. Like it was in that order of events. Yeah, I started my own clinic to pursue that opportunity
Hmm.
and be able to do both because I would manage my own athletes and go from there. But then that fell through. And then it was push come to shove. Now you're on your own. I could have gone back and, worked there, but I decided I'm going to bet on myself. And I had made that commitment prior to leaving that other clinic. I had a
Hmm.
lot of support there. It was awesome. And so then I already committed to myself, betting on myself.
Right.
And so then here I am now.
Yeah. So cool. So it was like, so, so someone's like, "Hey, you should start your own business." You're like, "Yeah, but I never thought about that." How much time was it between someone mentioned it and then you actually did it? And what was the thing that got you to the yes?
I think it was the concept of I mentioned earlier like the need of the athletes that I was working with. Insurance got us so far, right? And
Hmm.
then in a general PT setting, it's you don't have the opportunity of working one on one. That's just how the setting is. So it was. I would probably say give or take a year before I made that leap.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a lot of contemplating. And at the time, I was going to go into business with this guy, and things fell through there. And so then there was kind of some things where I was like, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know if I want to do this all by myself, kind of deal. And then it was, again, these things kept happening to where I got that push I needed
Hmm.
because as these things were happening, I had already committed to doing like the certificate of formation, found an attorney, develop, and reaction was an entity. And this was back in, gosh, I just looked at it a couple days ago, July 16th of 2020, but it
Yeah.
was still a side hustle. I wasn't full time.
Right.
It was 2021 when I went full time.
Yeah. Was there like was there a little push from the profession or the current job, like it's 2020, you don't have as much business or work or something in the job like started to suck or change that you were like, I got to get away from this? Or was it more of this opportunity to work with this like the team and or athletes and help them basically get across the finish line, not just on the field, you know?
Right, exactly. So I think it was a little of both, honestly. During that time when I decided to become an entity was during the unfortunate scenario, an unfortunate series of events with COVID. And so our time working in the clinic wasn't as demanding, but we were still very much seeing patients that had just had, their post-operative and needed our help. So it was a combination of not of having more free time. And then it was better because I was of offering one-on-one.
Hmm.
So a lot of patients would took a big liking to that because of the situation.
Right.
So it was almost favorable for me. And then, like I said, it was a little bit of both. I had I guess you can say that want to help them get, like you mentioned, get them across. Like we were only getting them to where, kind of flipping of what you were saying, like we got them to the finish line, but I did not get them onto the field to perform at the level they wanted. I just
Yeah.
got them to where the finish line that the insurance
Right.
says. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's
It's
kind of
like
what
you're
I'm
good
saying. So it's
enough, but you're not like
exactly,
you're not better than you were before, which is what you should, if you're an athlete, you should be better every year, right? I mean, when you
exactly.
come
Yeah,
back from
it's
an
the truth.
injury, like you should be at least where you were, but insurance is just like, hey, they can move their knee,
That's
right?
perfect. That's all they need. Like it was unfortunate I got that feedback constantly from the athletes that I was able to work with.
Hmm.
And they're like, well, what else can I do? And so then there was a cash option, and I would almost feel bad because I would only give them, like, let's say I had 3, sometimes even 4 patients at a time. I was giving them at best 25% of myself. And
Hmm.
at that, if I had an evaluation at the same time, or like not the same time, but 30 minutes after or something like that, forget it. Here's the workout. Let me know if there's any questions, or
Yeah.
ask my teammates.
What was the cash rate at that clinic? Was that at the right at the clinic you were working at? Was it like $75 for the hour, or was it a lot more?
No, I think it was like 125, I think.
Okay. For the hour,
And
right?
for
Yeah.
the hour.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for the hour. I maybe it was a little bit more. I would be lying if it was any more than like 175.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know it wasn't the 200 mark.
Yeah. And you felt guilty. You're like, yeah, I'm spending like 10 minutes with him. Right?
Oh man, I did. I really did. I said, I had some people that were willing to still commit at that cash option rate
Hmm.
just to continue getting some version of direction. And I will tell you that as that kept happening more and more, I'm thinking I'm only giving them not even a quarter of me, and they're
Right.
still willing to pay that much, so to speak. And it was then that it also, excuse me, gave me more of that drive and that want to
Yeah.
to continue on my own.
That's awesome. What's the most unethical thing you've seen like an insurance company do? Because you have more experience than I do working in insurance like practice.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I mean, unethical, it's
Or
they try and
maybe that's
lead.
too strong of a
Right,
word
right.
in
It's
quotes,
kind of,
but it's, like what's I mean,
it's true. Like, I really do think a lot of the times with insurance, and, a lot of the communities that are underserved, and they only get so many visits, and let's say they have something as traumatic as an ACL repair,
yeah.
and they get 6 visits for their entire treatment. How can they even say that that is okay? And they couldn't, and these are the people, like I said, that were underserved, and they may not be in, the highest tax bracket, but if they get this insurance, they should at very minimum provide them with, let's just say there's 12 months in a year, you
Yeah.
can get 12 sessions, and at the very minimum come once a month. So they're
Right.
getting care throughout the course of the year, right? So something like that. And that's
Yeah.
something that I saw all the time. And then, if like we just talk about from a PT standpoint on the business side, the way, I mean, insurance is a business, and they want to make sure that they go with clinics that are in network. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So that way they can save more money and pay the practitioner as little as possible. So
Yeah.
then that's why you have the problem where you have the general run-of-mill PT having to see 4 patients at a time, 20 patients a day, some 35, 40. I mean, I just heard it
Hmm.
this morning. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. I mean, some people think it's crazy that we see like, oh, I was like, oh, it's unethical to see like 10, 15 people a day. And I'm like, yeah, but I've seen 43, like
Yeah.
it's crazy. And that was like a sports oriented clinic. And it was like, at the end of the day, the basketball team showed up and I was like, okay, I got 4 or 5 of the guys, and then Frank had the other, 5 dudes. And it was like, we had an hour and a half and we just added a bunch of people. And it was, I mean, you do that because they need it, but I had like 10 minutes, to help these guys with like, sprained ankles and messed up, like necks that were hurting and stuff like that. So, do you feel like you give better care, or you're just able to give like, is it better care in the hour of time or the minute, the numbers of minutes you have, or is it because you have a better control of the decision making process, or just you can see them for longer without having to fight for length of time? Like, what makes the difference between, let's say, even the outcome, like how people get better, because
Yeah.
people get better just getting off the couch. Some people just need to move and they just need 1 or 2 things, and other people need a little bit more. Like, what's the difference between your like the environment you have in your own business and the one that you were working in?
You kind of said them all. They all kind of tie in,
Mm.
like the decision making is now completely in our hands. And I truly believe that gives the athlete, the patient, the power to decide, um, based off of the recommendation that I have.
Yeah.
And I think and being able to have that freedom of saying, this is what I recommend, separate of what the insurance is saying. Um, and this is how, and painting this picture, not being limited, my having the decision making and saying, this is what I recommend, this is what I think you should do.
Hmm.
And then giving the patient athlete that power to be like, that plan sounds great. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that. Like, it's not so much just the outcome, because you're right. I've even said this to some of my patients that really hold true to price objection, where they're like, I just can't afford it. I'm like, listen, if you want to get something, go use your insurance. I'll be here when you're ready. And I let them know what I'm telling you now is that we're going to decide what we're going to do together, and we don't have to worry about anyone else putting their hand in the pot. And with that, they feel so much better. They feel like they're really involved, and it helps me because they actually have already bought into the process. They trust me, and we don't have to worry about anything else. I think those outside, um the outside, God, what word am I looking for, complications, if
Hmm.
you will, it just puts a
Or
damper on
interests.
their.
There's other interests of, like
Exactly.
someone gets their ego hurt because you disagreed with them, kind of thing too.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense too. So it's like, even though they may get an outcome that is favorable to them, I believe that when you have that time factor is also a big, big, big thing for me. I don't spend 2, 3 hours with my athletes, but I am able to give everything I have in that fixed time frame,
Mhm.
right? And so that in and of itself, I always say this and I say this repeatedly, what is more valuable than money? Time. If I
Right.
can give them my time and vice versa, there's going to be I've just seen so much better outcomes, way better outcomes, way more patient involvement. And then the buy-in, that commitment, that trust, all of that, it kind of ties back to what you're saying. Everything you mentioned falls in line with not so much getting this tremendous outcome, although it happens that way. There's just so much more that I missed out on when I was in a run-of-the-mill PT.
Mhm.
I engenuinely enjoy creating relationships with people. You've said it in one of your podcasts, pun intended. Well, it's not really a pun, but in one of your podcasts where, you 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 can really take the time to get to know someone, and you better get to know Sally, you better get to know Rob, or whatever the case may be, and you get the time to do that, right? You
Mhm.
have that decision to do so. So, it's a lot of little things, but it's not just so much that when you come here you only get one-on-one time with me. It's we are both involved in the decision making process without having like big brother, aka insurance, deciding that for us.
You've been in the field for what now, like 8 or 9 years, right? You
Yes.
got like a sports medicine, like, and the specialty certification or whatever. Like, were those things necessary? Would you have done this earlier? Or, if someone's like starting, you know, out of school or 10 years after you, do you think any of those things, like, like, are the biggest factors in your success or the results that you're getting with people?
That's so funny that you asked that, because I believed it was. I really did. I thought that, having your sports clinical specialty, having my EMR certification, which is like within the sports clinical specialty or specialist, excuse me. I believe that that was what I needed to do to get to the next level. Now, is if I were to have continued working with this said professional, he didn't even ask if I had
Mhm.
any of that.
Right.
It was by word of mouth. I had connected with these people before with this organization. I dedicated my time. I went to go volunteer. I just put myself out there. And I continue to show up, which is, I preach that as well. Like, consistently show up, and things will happen. But know when to stop, right? If you go 30,000 times and nothing happens, maybe that's not the spot to go. But my point being is, I was recommended, and this person calls me and we have this conversation, and he said, "Okay, let's get the ball rolling." Didn't
Mhm.
even I could have been gosh, a Joe Schmo off the road that just started personally training or something outrageous. I mean, granted, this person that was recommended, he highly trusted her. So my point is like it didn't matter what I had.
Yeah.
It literally made no difference. It goes back to it's not what you do to people that they'll remember, it's how you make them feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that really hit home for me because if you make someone feel that they're heard, you make someone feel like you're going to do everything you can to get them in the best position possible. That's
Yeah.
it. I mean, honestly, and then you got to know a couple things to get them better, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thankfully, I've done the schooling that I've had, and it really allows me to make sure I'm elevating at the highest level for these, especially these professionals I
Mm-hmm.
work with currently. You got to I personally feel that there's a lot to be said about staying on top of the game with
Right.
literature and all that stuff, but they don't ask me, "Hey, do you have all these credentials? Do you
Right.
have" that nobody
They're like,
does,
I saw
and
this
it's
person
unfortunate.
on TikTok. Do you do that? Right.
Exactly. They're like, could you do this?" They'll, like, bring up social media. "We saw you did this. Can you do that with me?" And I'm thinking, "Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, we can do that."
What what are the so what are the two or three things that really made a big difference with you growing your business from, being like in your second bedroom to having your own place and being successful? Like what are the two or three like strategies or things that you did or things that happened that really made the biggest difference if it wasn't like your OCS or whatever you guys got?
3 biggest things that, allowed me to grow a lot. I mean, the first biggest thing was just getting out in the community,
Mhm.
um, having that understanding that when you go put yourself in enough situations and in enough environments, and take the time to talk to the people that are willing to listen, that was a big thing for me that really pushed really moved the needle for me. As soon as I started making myself or, putting myself out there as a specialist in performance and really niching down to the community that I took the time to really study in and stuff, it was then that I was able to make that transition because more people were coming based off of the ability to get out in the environment and put and establishing myself as the expert in that
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
So I would say that more community involvement. I would also say that, having that, I do think a little bit of it came from already having had practice in the background, but I didn't have too many athletes carry over. I will say I had a few of them. So maybe not so much that. I'm thinking like at the very beginning stages. A lot of it was the community involvement. A lot of it was making sure that I mean, it was simple, like, as long as you got in the community and you stay true to your word and try to build out a program for them, then, that provided more word of mouth. So a
Mhm.
lot of word of mouth involvement. And then what really moved the needle outside of that was understanding how to create the processes, policies, and procedures, and that's you and all of your resources were extremely helpful that allowed me to get to where I am now.
Yeah.
It
Awesome.
wasn't just you could do so much community involvement, but if you don't know what to do once you get these people in the door, how do you keep them? How do you keep that passive income coming? And that I can truly say it was a big part of why I invested in hiring you as my business coach and all that fun stuff. So I would really say that this last year, I really had big moves in terms of like getting that push that I needed
Yeah.
and surrounding myself with others that are doing the same thing.
That's awesome. What, like thinking back, like, it's a little over a year ago, what were the one or two things that you were struggling with trying to figure out, that like, prompted you to be like, hey, I need to do something different or, go find this crazy redhead dude podcast I've been listening to.
Right? Oh man, I would probably say when I was, I've hired people in the past and I've let go of people and I've always had someone to kind of bounce ideas off of. That
Mhm.
was the biggest reason why I pursued my residency. I truly believe in surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me. And when I got to the point where I was going to hire, it was very different. I had to build out this pay scale. I had to know how to make sure that the numbers matched up correctly. And it just felt very overwhelming. And I didn't want to make the wrong move. And a lot of the times what you would say in some of your podcasts is like, I've lost thousands of dollars because I went this avenue, and I'm thinking I could be paying her too much, or I could be paying this person too little. You really helped me with that. And then, with the hiring process, and then understanding how important it is, or how easy it is to create policies and procedures, as opposed to, trying to make them out of nothing, right?
Hmm.
Like a lot of the clinics, like the clinics that I was helping run, or, managing at the time, I had all of those things handed to me, and I would just review it, understand it, move on. And then I didn't want to use those same things. I really wanted to just have this entity be all me, and not anything with that involved. So that was a tremendous help as well.
Yeah. Awesome. What was there, did you hesitate, was there anything that you hesitated on joining or saying yes, or was there anything about, was
Oh
there
yeah,
anything you hesitated? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. What
Yeah, easily.
what did you doubt? What was the what
The
was the
the doubt
hesitation?
was, I mean, the very first doubt was, is this even really going to help me?
Hmm.
I had been established. I had helped open other clinics. I had been in a managerial role. I was already doing pretty well in my mind. And then and so with that already looming in the background, then it was the actual investment,
Yeah.
right? Like putting forward that money and knowing that this was going to be something that would in turn be lucrative eventually,
Yeah.
right? Trusting the process. That was the biggest thing for me personally. Like, would I get something out of it? I felt that I knew what I was doing. Then I became more open-minded and realized, like, if you feel like you've already made it, what are you doing? If this is where you want to be. What do you, no, I knew I wanted more. I wanted multiple clinics, and I knew I didn't know how to do it the right way, or at least I didn't feel I had all the tools. So once I shifted my mindset and was more open to it, and then looked past the price point, or look and really understood that if I could do this one thing that would cover the cost, and then everything else is, money in my pocket. It was really just understanding that if you can shift your mindset, which is a lot of it, which was basically the biggest doubt or hindrance
Hmm.
for me to move forward. And then once I made that mind shift and invested, and trusted the process, and there was still some, even in it, I was still a little concerned, I don't know if this is going to work. And then actually buckling down and doing the work, and understanding that you're not going to do it for me. That's not what this is about. You know, I got a lot more, I definitely saw a lot more results, and it's making the time and understanding that you're not going to do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think even you could have said it 30 times over, right? You could have said, this is something you're going to get, what you're going to get in what you put out, you know?
Hmm.
So then do exactly that,
Yeah.
right? Schedule time to get work done, etc. So
Yeah.
yeah, there was doubts. There were
Yeah.
definitely doubts. And, exactly like I mentioned.
Yeah. Well, I got two kids in business myself. It's hard to do it for somebody else. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I didn't have two kids, but no, but that's true. It's the, it's like, I think for me, my perspective is like, I can show you where it is. I can show you where the water is. I can give you the path. Sometimes there's three different paths to the watering hole, but I can't walk down there. I'm gonna be like, I got to keep showing people where it is, or I've got my own things to do. But and if I can teach you how to do it, then maybe you'll figure out a way to do it even better than me. And that's my
Mhm.
philosophy is how can I show you, hey, here's the bread and you go make it better bread. We got sliced bread and then go make it better. That's how I see it. And I mean, it's awesome to hear you say that. So Danielle, tell me, like, what's changed in the last year? Like, what are one or two things that are different for you now than, I don't know, 13, 14 months ago? What's what
And the
have you
biggest
like?
thing is,
Yeah, I was just saying,
there's
like,
a
what's
lot.
different?
Yeah.
What have you learned? What's the, like, what are one or two things that like that made what are the things that made the biggest difference? What's the biggest change? You know?
Yeah. I would definitely say having the ability to have a community, and with you involved, of course, to bounce ideas off of, like, you come to points where you're just not sure what the next best move is. And when you get feedback from people that are in the exact same situation, it just makes everything so much easier. So that was a big thing, a big impact for me. Because I have friends and I can talk about it, but they don't understand how a business works. They're not in business for themselves. So it's always a little different. Um, and I think just overall that's probably the biggest thing, it's understand like learning new ways to make money and keep your business lucrative and not have to work ungodly hours. That has really made a shift to where as long as I'm seeing, 16, 18 patients a week, if I wanted to keep that a lifestyle, I could. But for me, I definitely want to see more happen. I want to have multiple locations in the future. And these are all things that I feel that are very possible with the plan that, with the route that I'm on now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, what I think there's two other things I want to ask about. Number one, what is your workout of choice? Like what's your sport workout of choice? Like how do you like stay fit, or is it different than your patient population? Yeah, I just want to know that. I don't even know that about you. No idea.
Man, it's super funny that no, I'm glad you asked because I told you my specialization, or maybe I didn't mention it earlier, is performing arts, which
Mm,
is ballet, gymnastics, competitive cheer. And
that's right.
I'm none of those. I was a cheerleader back in the day. It was comical to see me attempt that sport. My background is basketball. Like I played my entire life. I was blessed to see a college career through, and you would have thought that I would have dove further into that, but I really saw a gap in a community that was incredibly underserved and very much needed. And so I decided to deep dive into that. So answering your question in terms of what's my exercise or preference of workout, I tend to dabble in a few things. I'm very active. I love competing just as a former athlete, weekend warrior. My body may not agree with it, but that's a different story. I love to play recreational basketball, softball. I play for play for a recreational team. Um, and I'm still working up the courage to go embarrass myself at an adult gymnastics and ballet class. I studied it enough, but that doesn't mean I can relate. I
Hmm.
feel that I've read enough, I've heard so many descriptions and adjectives on how they're feeling, and I feel like I can almost feel their pain, kind of thing. But I don't know, and I haven't immersed myself completely, if you will. But I find myself in ballet studios, gymnastics gyms, competitive cheer gyms way more often than I do any other sport at this
Yeah,
point.
that's
So it's
awesome.
just funny because I use a way different method of training. Well, I'll do different sports to stay active, and I love doing functional fitness, like CrossFit, true strength training. I am kind of implement a little bit of everything just for the sake of making sure I don't go crazy doing the same thing over and over and over again. My ADHD would not like that.
Right. You know what? It's funny because I like variety, but then some days I'm just like, just tell me what to do, and I'm just gonna go do it because the hardest thing about a CrossFit
Yes.
workout is having to think about the workout. I'm just like, this is way too complicated.
You have
Like
to do what? There's 3 rounds of 17 what reps?
with
Where?
with five
Yes.
rests and different things. I'm just like, just tell
Oh
me
my
do
gosh,
this
yeah.
over and over and over again, and I'll just keep doing it.
And that's fine. Yeah, and you're not wrong. That's 100% true. If you just tell me to keep going on this one thing, no problem.
Right, right. Awesome. That's really cool. The okay, so my other thing, I was gonna ask this earlier, but I feel it's important because you've done some clinical mentoring, you've right, you've done all this stuff. Like
Mhm.
what are your like three like clinical pearls, like two or three clinical pearls that, are things that you found are like simple, easy, and it's kind of like this is kind of a business podcast, but I'm also thinking some days like, oh, yeah, I need to get some of this info out of some of these people come on. They're like really great clinically. So what are like your like, a couple clinical pearls that maybe you can pass along to other people to give them a little aha or a little insight into how you
Hmm.
treat patients and stuff.
Trying to think of the ones that I've implemented or utilized recently. Uh, one thing for me that I've always stuck to, and it's not so much, I mean, it's clinical, but going through the residency and then mentoring during the residency, finding a good system that works for you and literally following that to a T,
Hmm.
right? I can go through my eval and I have a basic evaluation, and I have my performance evaluation. And I have to go through it in the exact order every single time. I don't bounce around, and I have the opportunity to go way in depth. So I can do my full blown evaluation, how I built it, and I will do the evaluation all the way through. And then depending on which evaluation I'm providing for these patients, athletes, I then start like honing in on certain things.
Hmm.
So the one thing for me that works tremendously well, and it makes me an even better clinician, is I know exactly what I'm going to do no matter what. And I can go through it almost with my eyes closed. And when I feel or see, well, I guess it can't be closed. If I feel or see something that is out of whack, so to speak, I can automatically just deep dive into that. So I've worked with some clinicians that kind of bounce around in different areas, and then I just get lost. It's kind of like those CrossFit workouts with all these different methods and implemented into one thing. When you have a system, I highly recommend being very methodical with it. That has really proved me to make sure I'm covering all my bases. One thing that I really enjoy doing from a performance evaluation, I do what is called a limb symmetry index. It's I don't even think it sounds too fancy, but it's an objective measure, kind of like the Tindeck, or where you're just assessing their maximum volitional control.
I don't
Where
even
they're
know those
basically
words
firing.
anymore. I have no idea what you're
It's
talking
okay.
about.
You're just firing the muscle and assessing it.
Right?
I'm pretty sure it's MVC, but I'm also thinking that's motor vehicle accident, MVA. Okay, enough acronyms. Enough acronyms. The
I only
point of the
got a
story
1070
is
on my SAT. I can't keep up.
I can't even remember mine. Probably right around there. But doing the limb symmetry index provides objective measures, and patients, athletes love seeing that,
Yeah.
right? Giving them the number.
Can we go
If
back to
they're
that? So people,
sure.
so here's the, I because you said patients love seeing it. So right, so people come in. This is my aha moment. Is that people come in, they're like, Dr. LeBauer, I just need an MRI to know exactly what's going on because you know what? They
Mm,
can see the problem. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really the problem. See the way you move, it's like they don't care about feeling the problem. They want to see the problem. So when you're like they get a score, right? They can see it
mhm.
and they like, so can you tell us a little bit more like what do you give them and what do they love about it and what connects with them?
Yeah. So the limb symmetry index is very, I mean, it's very true to that. I make sure to do this after I go through my examination. And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Hey, did you feel that? Could you feel the imbalance between the two muscles?" Yes, I could definitely feel it. Perfect. What we're going to do now is called the limb symmetry index, and I have them hooked up to a machine, and they give me their maximum effort. And we're going to use internal rotation, external rotation, right? So they're going to pull inward as hard as they can. It's a fixed process. It's a fixed movement, so they're not going very far. I also use this thing called Handy Gym, where they give me 5 reps
Mhm.
and at max effort, everything they have, and I'm getting the highest value. And then I'll do it on the other side, and then I'll just do basic math, carry the one, and then I get a percentage, and the percentage, I'll show them both numbers, right? Let's just say it was 60 kilograms versus, or it's 60 watts, I believe, and 40 watts. So you can see the difference of output between the two. They're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense because it felt weaker when we tested it a few minutes ago. Exactly. So it's kind of like feeding into that small need for patients to feel like, okay, yeah, I can feel it, but is it really true?
Mhm.
I think that giving them these objective measures not only gives them a little bit more of that confirmation, but it allows me to use that number and actually show outside of, I do performance values where I have them do like agility work, etc., and show time and stuff like that. But this is another metric that I really like lean towards because it gives me a good idea of whether or not they are actually getting stronger.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the really general synopsis of
Yeah.
implementing, a test like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally dismissed all that shit in PT school. I was like, meh. I was like,
I don't
but
need to
this is
do
the
it.
problem. Like, I know, you know what I mean? But it was like for me, I was like, all
Yeah.
these thinking, but at the same time, like I came from doing massage. And I was just like, yeah, but like, like I can tell where the problem is and y'all aren't even touching it. And I was like, we don't need to measure anything, but I can see now, like after you sharing that, like the measurement is even just one of those things that gives people some buy-in. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
I've measured my right arm, which is stronger, isn't as strong as my left, and that's the
Right.
problem. And then there's a number for them to kind of almost like lock onto, where they're like, it's not a threatening number, but it's a number that like we can change, ideally. you know,
Right. Right. Yeah. And then sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, that's real bad. And then
yeah.
sometimes they're like, oh, everything was perfect. I said,
Mhm.
well, that's odd.
Mhm.
Let's do another test.
Like, oh, that's the worst
It's
I've ever
very,
seen.
yeah, I can't believe that. It's just having that open-ended conversation with
Yeah.
them and providing them those numbers and that like even let's just use that as an example. Even if they do perform well and they don't have an imbalance, I rely back on the test. Well, remember when we did this, it may
Mhm.
not be weak, but it was still painful.
Mhm.
So we still have
Mhm.
something that you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's still things that we can implement, even though they perform really well. Because it
Have you
happened
have you ever
recently and
had
I
it where it
said,
was like they were the same left to right, and then you treated them, and then the right side got stronger or vice versa, and now it's
oh
not the
yeah.
same, it's look, you're even stronger.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's happened, and I'm all,
Yeah.
"Well, that's good. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
We gotta get the other side up to par now, so you gotta hang out with me more,
Yeah.
or just keep repeating it and, visit me later."
That's
I
awesome.
will say the last thing that I just thought of it right now as we were talking. One of the easiest things I do,
Mhm.
and I do it regularly, like with a on-site screening or anything like that, having them squat in all 4 directions can tell you a lot. Where they're
Mhm.
facing you, right? And I look from the bottom up, I look at their feet, right? And then I go to the knees and then the hips, and I stay that way. I'm very systematic. And then having them face one direction, see how their knees are tracking, have them giving you your backside, see if there's any shift in the hips, and having them face the other way, see how that knee's tracking. Having them squat in all 4 directions has really allowed me to dissect a lot with just one movement.
Yeah.
And then I'll go immediately into a single leg squat, and everyone loves that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my
So,
favorite. Talk to a bunch of runners, everyone do a single leg squat. Who
oh
can't
my
who can't
gosh.
do it, and whose knee hurts, or ankle hurts.
Exactly. Easy,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. I love that one. D, this
Mhm.
has been really awesome. I feel like I could stay on here and chat with you for another half hour, but I gotta run and go get my kids.
No worries.
If someone wants to connect with you on Instagram or anywhere else, is that the best place, or would they find you?
Yeah, honestly, I'm on majority of social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's reaction_sport rehab, and I'm sure we'll put it in the link.
Yeah.
And yeah, any method, email, give me a call, by all means,
Yeah.
hit me on any of those platforms.
Yeah. You stalk her on Google, you should find you, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They go to Google. That's easy too. Everything should be there. I made sure. So yeah,
Yeah.
it should be pretty easy to get a hold of
Yeah,
me.
perfect. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, sharing your journey and wisdom with us. This has been really awesome for me. So I'm looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, for sure, Aaron. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to next time
Yeah,
too.
awesome. On you. All right. Well, adios, y'all. Have a great day. I think my number one lesson is give your patients some little objective measure to that's like a fun statistic that they can measure, and keep them away from all the negative stuff that they're going to freak out about. But really, it is just find the people around you that can support you and help you grow. Because I think that's what you said was most helpful. So I think that's it. That's what I'm trying to do every day. So thanks. See you
You're
guys.
welcome. We'll see you, Aaron.
Hey, what's up? It's Aaron. Thanks for listening to the show. Whenever you're ready, here's 3 ways I can help you grow your physical therapy business. Number 1, grab a free copy of my book. It's the roadmap to launch, grow, and scale your physical therapy business. Go to cashptblueprintbook.com or DM me the word book over on Instagram, and I'll send you a link to get it shipped to you for free. Number 2, join our Cash PT Blueprint case study program. I'm putting together a new case study group this month. And if you'd like to work with me to launch a 6-figure cash practice and start seeing patients in just 90 days, send me a message over on Instagram with the words case study, and I'll reply back to you with all the details. Number 3, you can join our Cash PT Academy coaching group. I meet with dozens of successful cash practice owners weekly on Zoom to solve business headaches, brainstorm ideas, and teach the latest marketing and business building strategies and tactics. This is our coaching program that takes existing PT businesses and helps them scale to 6 and multiple 6 figures in just 12 to 24 months. If you've got a PT practice and you're ready to add 10K a month or more to your revenue, you may qualify to join us. Just DM me the word Academy over on Instagram and I'll set up a time to chat. And 4, for some reason, if you're not one of those and you own a business brand and you want to work with me directly to help you add 7 figures to your business or another 250K this year, and you're looking for private one-on-one coaching, VIP days, etc., and you'd like to maybe partner together in your existing business, send me a message with the word private. Tell me about your situation, what you want to work on together, and we'll set up a time to talk to. I'll see you next time. Peace.